3. What is up, fight fans? I'm, of course, Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com. We're here for an all-new edition of Back Talk. This week will be different than usual as we dive into several major MMA topics, answer questions, and preview tomorrow's UFC 254 event. And with me to co-pilot this ship is a very busy man. While he moonlights for Sherdog on a rare occasion, not that much anymore, he's a traitor. And, but the crux of his regular work can be found at my MMA News, the Body Lock, MMA On Point. He's all over the place. Tonight, he will be by far the second sexiest man you are resting your eyes on. And that is because he's the one and only Anthony Beeman Walker, Senor Beeman. Welcome to the Burgos Dome. How are you?
It's good to see you. I mean, you had to throw out my full government there. Thanks a lot for that. You did. I like the hoodie, by the way. We're on the same page. We are absolutely on the same page. You should feel very special right now, Jason, because I literally just got back from training. I'm still wearing a compression shirt. I got in time to set up my mic and get ready to rock.
Is it like for a competitive eating contest training?
It's for a competitive middle finger contest.
You're at mid-season form then. Well done. The training's going great. All right, so I know, are we still stuck on the 1 hour limit? You got to be in and out because you're a busy man these days?
Yeah, probably have to stick with the hard time limit. My son just woke up, and my wife is trying to tend to him back there. So we are on Adonis's clock at this moment.
Fair enough. So we have so much to talk about, so I'll go right into it now. We're going to have for you guys, we're going to have questions as people said from the forums, stuff like that. We're also just going to talk topics along with previewing UFC 254. So I'm just going to go straight into a topic, which was a big topic yesterday into today. Leon Edwards gets removed from the rankings because of inactivity. We all thought like, damn, that's messed up. It was a big conversation yesterday, the nonsense of the rankings. Then today we get the news just a few hours ago. He is now booked to fight Khamzat Chimaev in a fight, which honestly nonsense, but that's UFC in 2020 and the last decade. Now I ask you, is that whole maneuver where he gets removed from the rankings for inactivity, then all of a sudden the Chimaev fight materializes? Chimaev has been asking for a fight for the longest. Is that peak UFC rankings nonsense, or did the UFC play a very smart trick just in time for Halloween on Mr. Edwards?
I think it's a bit of both, man. Like, this is typical UFC trickery with the rankings that don't mean anything. I mean, we still have, we talking about removing him for inactivity. Like, Conor McGregor is still ranked in the top of the lightweight division, and he hasn't had a win at lightweight since Eddie Alvarez at UFC 205. So, and he hasn't competed in the division since UFC 229 in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
This is ridiculous. It's nuts. So then on top of that, this is a screw job toward Leon Edwards. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was booked to fight the former champion in Tyron Woodley in his return fight after holding the belt in March, if it weren't for a deadly pandemic. So, like, why they are holding him to some standard that they're not holding others, I don't understand. I do get they're trying to hype Chimaev, but this is bad all the way around. This is the pinnacle of terrible matchmaking.
And I agree 1,000%. And like the whole inactivity thing was really messed up. And there's this weird thing that I actually had a conversation with a friend, and I don't know why it's fitting, but there's just sometimes it seems like when certain athletes of color, often black, get to the top levels and feel they want what they deserve and are trying to get those top fights, and there's just a different kind of treatment. It seems like Corey Anderson just got released, Demetrius Johnson got traded, Tyron Woodley got treated weird when he's a champion, this guy can't get a booking. Like, there's a lot of weird things with that, and that how Khamzat is getting in this weird favoritism. He's getting a shot with a top 5 guy after fighting in the division once. But that said, I will give the UFC a ton of credit. They played some hardball, some power corporation trickery, and they won. Like, they put fear in this guy, like, oh, yep, we'll just do that. We'll take you out of the rankings. We'll make you, because of inactivity, you mean nothing now. We have the power to make you go from being one of the top welterweights in the world to meaning nothing now. And I think that put a fear in Leon Edwards. If I was him, I would have just asked my release, but I can't blame him if he didn't want to. And I think that's just the rough part of it. He got strong-armed, and it's the worst parts of what the UFC can do on a very public scale.
Definitely, man. They played hardball, and that's something that they have the power to do. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've talked a million times when we used to do the trenches about fighter pay, about the efforts to unionize, about why there needs to be some level of unity among the fighters to prevent things like this from happening. Because for every fighter on the roster right now who wants to say like, oh, you know, I fight anybody, anytime, anywhere, and Leon Edwards sat out and blah blah, and you want to put on this facade. I mean, how about you win 7, 8 in a row in one
Yeah.
of the toughest divisions in the sport? Be right there in front of a title shot, and then due to no fault of your own, your best opportunity is stripped from you, and now you are essentially blackmailed into fighting a guy who isn't even
Yeah.
ranked. It
Yep.
doesn't make any sense. So I don't. I mean, if this is one of those other things that happens, I mean, we can talk about UFC 232. We can talk about the Reebok deal and USADA and all the things that were forced upon fighters that should be some sort of galvanizing moment. This is one of those. I don't think this will mean anything as far as those efforts are concerned in the long run. But Leon Edwards clearly got played. Clearly got played, and obviously too the standard is different for black athletes in this sport. I mean, in sports in general, but especially in mixed martial arts as of late. And you named a few good examples, and we could spend the rest of the show talking about others.
And also to add, our favorite, our man Jay Petrie, he's on in the stats sheets just like he was old days with the trenches and everything. He gave me some good information that he said Thiago Santos, Ryan Hall, and Anina Ansarov, who's just gave birth, who knows when she will come back, are all still ranked and have all been out longer since Leon Edwards. So the fact that Leon Edwards got handled like he did and they didn't. Also, we're looking at the color thing. Only one person of color there, but he's probably going to fight for a title soon and does really well. Like, that's messed up. Like, he is a professional athlete. And I wish more fighters just conducted their career like this. He wants a title shot. He deserves a title shot. He wants a top guy. Like, it's not unreal for him to only want to put his body on the line and make money for shots that he wants to fight. Like this Khamzat fight, everybody, the Khamzat hype train is in full overdrive right now, and all these people are probably gonna think he's gonna win. Leon Edwards is overrated. He's gonna beat him, and then when Leon Edwards does beat him, it's a lose-lose. He was supposed to beat him. The guy's not even ranked. Like now he has to take this fight that has some risk because maybe Khamzat is the welterweight, middleweight Habib, so there's risk in it. Maybe he loses this fight. Like it's just a shame. It's just a shame. But I not to hammer on this one too much because we really could talk a whole show about this. But let's just move on to the next thing. And the next thing is from our first question tonight from Bangkok Ready D1. They ask, why do we, as the MMA community, have such a hard time giving the winner props? What do you think, Anthony?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, it's a deep question.
You know what? I think it's something that's inherent in the MMA community. It's like a deep-rooted negativity. That's probably what it is. And as pessimistic and as awful as that sounds, I think we see a deep-rooted negativity through a lot of the interactions that fighters have with one another, with the promotions, with media, and it's this ball of negativity. It's like in Ghostbusters 2, where like all the hate in New York was forming the slime under the city. Like that's
I think that's how Colby Covington got formed.
Yeah,
He's
Colby
Vigo.
Covington is like Vigo.
He is Vigo.
So I mean that's really what this is all about because and it is a narrative in other sports, but typically it takes greats to inspire that sort of thought process to say, I don't know, crediting that Jordan did something as opposed to discrediting the defense. It normally takes great athletes to do that. In MMA, it's just everybody. I think it's just deep-seated negativity.
And I think it's just like MMA came to this level of fame not because it had like ESPN or some major sport networks backing. It was social media. It literally was at the MMA community saying this sport's amazing, it needs to be seen, and just raising it up, buying pay-per-views. But part of like social media culture, honestly, a huge part of social media culture, it's just straight hating, like you said. It's that negativity. So a sport that is so wrapped up in a culture that's all about hate. You know, we got cancel culture and high overdrive too, and fighters and major fights are made through social media, through Twitter. Yeah, it's just the nature of it's just part of like this natural hate and can't like, you know, certain things. And like, yeah, I'm not a LeBron fan. I wasn't rooting for the Lakers, but this guy's the greatest player I've ever seen in my life. You know, I know Jordan is amazing, but LeBron's unbelievable. Like, I can say that, but there's not enough people that could just say, man, John Jones, you know, greatest fighter I've ever seen, or something like that. He's overall, he's on. You know, it's just that natural culture and social media. Let me go type and talk this shit. Like, the best thing about social media is when you have fighters on there and regular people try to tough talk a fighter. That's how crazy social media is.
That is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, I think that's absolutely hilarious when people do that. I mean, people try to tough talk us on social media. Like, bro, I will smack the shit out you. Like, why? Like, why are we doing this?
No.
This is so stupid. But yeah, man, I do think also too, like MMA, just like other combat sports, boxing is probably even worse on this end. It's a what have you done for me lately sort of thing. So you can be just the greatest thing since sliced bread. You have a bad night, and then all of a sudden you're crap. You're nothing. You're washed. You're done. And then on top of that, we don't get the same opportunity to see these athletes perform like we do in basketball. Like, NBA regular season is 82 games. You know, you have 82 chances to go out there on the court and make your presence felt.
Yep.
And this is in the same week you can have 3-4 games. But we're talking about in a year, a fighter might have 3 fights. You know, 4 if they're lucky.
Yeah.
So you're just looking at the perfect storm to form just this negative sort of mentality with a lot of things.
And that's a perfect example too of like the sports and bigger sports. You can play yourself out of a slump and fan hate within days, within a week in basketball. And football, maybe a couple weeks. Like, it may take you a couple years to get out of hate with like a couple losses. I remember talking to Timothy Johnson, who is now in line to maybe fight for a heavyweight title in Bellator, and I interviewed him before the Mitrione fight. He talked about how he just like the worst comments would come from social and like acting like he's a can and that he, you know, can't win. And look at him now. You know, it's just that natural attitude of it. But moving on from there, now this is a more serious topic but something that needs to be talked about now, is the situation with Danielle Nickerson, Mike Perry's ex-wife, and the accusations she made in her interview on MMA Junkie this past week. Now, the one thing I ask about it is I'll ask the general question, but then I'll give a quote from that MMA Junkie article for people that haven't read or haven't watched the video. You really should. Should the UFC suspend Mike Perry after his ex-wife's accusation? Should there at least be an internal investigation? And if this is not worth a suspension, what is outside of a drug suspension, a drug failure for the UFC? Now, let me just read the quote real quick from the article. It's still up now. She said, in one aspect, when he attacked her in their house after this crazy night where he was bugging out and drunk, he had his knee on my belly and just ground and pounded me until he got tired. I did a decent job of covering my face. I still had hematomas on the back of my head. My entire right side from my entire arm, my legs, my ribs, everything was covered in bruises the next few days. He just got all of his anger out on me, and on the last punch, I think that's why he stopped, is we heard my rib crack. He knew and sat back, and I think we just tired. He was just tired of hitting me so much. I mean, how do they not come out strong on this? Especially as weird as he's been acting. Everybody's been joking about how off kilter, how he's mentally, the horse is out of the barn on him. Not come out strong. What do you need, Mike? You don't need Mike Perry. If you release Mike Perry and the accusations were unfounded, fine, whatever. He goes somewhere. This isn't John Jones, some superstar you have to protect for your bottom line. Like, why would you not come out strong? At least we're looking into the situation. He's indefinitely suspended for now. Why nothing? It's crazy.
I mean, they're not even pretending to care.
No.
And that's what's kind of alarming to me. They're just not even pretending to care. But at the same time, at least they're not pretending.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen the UFC look the other way for sexual assault and rape allegations. We've seen them look the other way for bar fights and all sorts of things. I mean, we've talked at length about the situations involving BJ Penn,
yeah,
and how it took him to get knocked out by some regular scrawny grumble looking guy.
He lost his value.
He lost his value. He lost his value as a fighter, not as a human being.
Yeah.
By all of his misconduct outside of the cage. So this is kind of par for the course. But let me go on record with this, and I've said this in other venues and whatnot, and I'll say it again here on Sherdog. Mike Perry's a fucking idiot. He's a clown. He's an idiot. He's a racist. He is a despicable human being, and the UFC doesn't need him. They just don't. Like, he is a vile person that has no place in the public eye. And to not address this, especially after they went through that song and dance with him apparently going into some sort of anger management or rehab after whatever incident he had with his current girlfriend at the bar, that when he punched the old man or whatever. So right off the heels of that, you say you're not going to book him. He's going to go through some treatment. If I'm not mistaken, he's booked for a fight, correct?
I think so. Let's look it up. Jay, if you can look it up, let us know.
Robbie Lawler, I believe. I think Robbie Lawler.
I think so. Yeah.
He's booked a fight. So this little turnaround quick on the anger management or rehab treatment. Now he's fighting Robbie Lawler, and now you have another incident. And granted, this was in the past, but still, this is pretty severe. This is pretty damn severe. This is something that you don't want people on the roster professional fighters out there beating up their wives and girlfriends. This is disgusting. This is absolutely disgusting. And also, let's give credit to Simon Simano of MMA Junkie for excellent reporting on this. He took a lot of flack unfairly for another headline about another unfortunate incident on the outskirts of MMA, and that was the tragedy involving Walt Harris's stepdaughter. So he took a lot of flack unfairly. It's good to see him doing good work as always. So give him his credit too, please.
And the nuts thing about this is, and Real Sports, now I've watched Real Sports for a long time, and they've, for the most part, been fairly rough on MMA, and they only cover the bad stuff, really. MMA, they recently did that report on weight cutting, which they're like many years late to the game. We all know how bad weight cutting is, but it was harsh, but they dropped some interesting. But I ask everyone to look up. They actually had a really good piece. It's probably 3 or 4 years now at this point, where they talked about like this inherent domestic abuse issue specifically with MMA fighters. We all probably remember, but maybe forgot now, War Machine. And that guy's craziness, what he did with his girlfriend, I forget her name, but the adult film star, but like just almost killed her for beating her. He's not the first one. There's at least probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 instances of MMA fighters attacking their girl. Rachel Ostovich, another one. And she was on the card with Greg Hardy. That was another one. Like, this is a serious problem, and these are like, looking the other way on it because they're independent contractors is not a good look. Like, you're just acting like it's gonna happen. Oh, it's not our problem. I didn't see it. You got to stand up for just injustice and do what's right. Like, and Ben, Jay just brought up a great point in the chat saying they let go of Ben Sisoli. So Ben Sisoli had to get jail time for him to finally just straight up let go. So pretty much, to answer the question, unless you fail a drug test or are going to jail, like, the UFC is just going to look the other way. He also mentioned that, you're right, he's fighting Robbie Lawler in a month. At UFC 255, he's going to be on a pay-per-view next month coming off accusations where he attacked his wife, and she had to leave. And if you watch the video, his wife was found, and she called his mother, who lives a block away, and when the mother picked up, she explained, the mother wasn't like, oh my god, I can't believe he did that. She was already aware to his attitude and how he handles things. And then when he went to the mother's house, the mother was scared of him on the police calls too. Come on, like, how much more do you need to happen? And also, Ben mentioned it was War Machine, and it's Christy Mack, which was his girlfriend at the time, that he almost killed. But it's I don't get it, man.
We've come a long way from, I believe it was Chris Chobe that was released from the UFC because of something that was revealed in his past when he was in the Air Force. He had some domestic violence accusation from his then wife, and they released him like just right away. And Dana White's words were, hitting women is something you can't come back from. We've come a long way from that. Oh, by the way, they're still trying to insert Rumble into the mix, but that's another story.
And Greg Hardy's about to co-main event like another.
Yeah. So.
And just to move along a little bit, but also give credit to chat, everybody in the chat. Thanks. We got some class. We got Yojimbo in there. We got Frank McEdgar in there.
Frank McEdgar. And we missed you guys.
We got designated member who actually makes a great point back to their question of the MMA community not giving props to winners. He mentions MMA is also fundamentally a blood sport. It appeals to very primal emotions. Primal emotions easily cause uncivilized reactions. I think that's a fair point.
That's a very intelligent statement.
Let's see what we've got here. Also, quickly, I'll let you answer this real quick. Frank McEdgar, I don't know if you got to see it, but he asked, what's your take on Mike Dolce's opinion on Habib's weighing controversy? Did you see a video of the article talking about that he was mentioning, the weirdness of the scale and everything?
I didn't read through it. I saw there was some headline about it. I'm the only thing I know about the weirdness with the scale was some troll on Twitter was going into like the scale shaking or something like that. But I mean, we have the perfect storm again of just things that shouldn't happen. One, Khabib always has tough weight cuts. Like this is something that we've known for a long time. He has a rough time making 155. Then on top of that, they are in a territory without any real regulation, so the UFC can kind of do whatever they want. If you have real commission officials there, or at least, and even if there are real commission officials there acting as a commission, like they're still employees of the UFC at that moment. So if this fight were taking place in Brooklyn and the New York commission was there, or if it was taking place in Vegas and the Nevada commission was there probably will be tougher regulation on that scale. It probably would be something that makes a little more sense to everyone else. I'm not surprised at all by this. And then on top of that, considering how we just had Daniel Cormier admit to having COVID leading up to the trilogy fight with Stipe, if a fight is big enough in this era, with this much on the line with ESPN and the guaranteed money coming into the company, there is no way in hell that they are going to let a main event of this magnitude just fall by the wayside by a pesky little thing like regulation, health, and safety. It's just not going to happen.
And that was in Vegas, so at least there was like some kind of Nevada State Athletic Commission oversight and stuff like that. This is with the UFC Fight Island Athletic Commission. Like, we know that's nothing. That's not anything real. It's just UFC doing whatever they want. And especially considering that they're airing this early, so it can air in Russia, Dagestan, nighttime. Oh, they're not fucking with. Khabib needs to lose a leg for this thing not to happen.
Khabib is one of the biggest stars. He probably is the biggest star in the sport on a worldwide level. We think about McGregor in that position, but Khabib is if he is not as big of a star, he might be a bigger star. Like he just might be. He is, from my understanding, the most followed athlete in Russia on Instagram. He went on a literal world tour of Russia and the former Soviet Union territories and Muslim countries after he won the title. This is a bona fide international superstar. So this is a huge deal for the UFC. And keep in mind too, Abu Dhabi's been footing the bill for the creation of Fight Island. You think they're going to be happy to pay that price without their biggest star on being able to be used on here? I'm telling you, man, whatever. You know what I got to say.
They ain't trying to see Chandler versus Gaethje. They ain't excited for that fight, even though we are.
That ain't with the Abu Dhabi government. Hopefully they release James Krause after his slander on the mic in his post-fight speech. Hopefully James Krause is still with us. But those same folks, they're not going to be happy with Chandler versus Gaethje. Like, sorry.
I'm not sure if I've still seen real live video James yet in America, so it's still left to be determined if he really came back or not. But that said, especially in digital age, you could just do special effects.
See if he's all right.
Yeah, text him. But also, let me just add one quick thing. Great point from designated member in the chat. I forgot about this. Paul Daly was banned for life for pushing a ref. We were all on board with that. So pretty much UFC's don't push the ref, but if you punch and beat the hell out of your wife or girlfriend, we're gonna look the other way. I mean,
Jason High as well. So we've seen double, triple, and quadruple standards as far as the UFC is concerned. So it all bets are off. It's just depending on what Dana feels like. It depends on what Endeavor feels like and what ESPN says is okay.
And now Jay also put in the Slack. Will Chope cut in 2014? The UFC does not condone behavior of this nature whatsoever, and Chope has been released from his contract. Dolce believes that Habib cheated because the commission official took the weight quickly and didn't let the scale level out. 22 million Instagram followers for Habib. Good Lord, that's a lot. And moving on to the next one, to another trenches classic, often contributor. Europe One asks,
Europe One,
and it's a good one. Is Jared Cannonier's crystal worshipping, black Israelite, world spirit, QAnon persona the kookiest in MMA?
He is certainly the weirdest mix-up of all sorts of deviant personalities in society. I'm telling you, if there's a shiny example of don't meet your heroes, Jared Cannonier has to be on that list. Like, I remember, and I think it was on our old show where some victory he had, maybe it was after he beat Anderson Silva, where I was like, man, I like this guy. I'm singing his praises, and he's just so strange. Like, I really like this guy. Yeah. Well, don't check out his Twitter feed. Good Lord. I mean, one of the dumbest things you ever meet in your life is a QAnon supporter.
What's worse, a QAnon supporter or flat earther?
Man,
it's a good one.
That is a good one. That is a mismatch of all sorts of stupid. I don't even know what direction to go in there. But yeah, man, that is such a, like, Jared Cannonier is the perfect embodiment of all things right and all things wrong with the personalities in mixed martial arts. Like, he certainly is a strange dude, and that's kind of appealing. But he's so strange that it's like come on, fam. Like, so I don't know. Like, it is certainly an unfortunate mix of whatever the hell he's doing, and I guess he's picked out the wrong crystals because.
I mean, I really can't answer it any better than that. So with that, I'll just move on to the next one, which you should love. Now, this one is Chatri Sityodtong claims recently averaged 29 million global viewers per event in 2019. Not even this year, 2019. Is Chatri One's biggest PR issue? Now, I'll take this one first because, oddly enough, I was actually having a pretty in-depth conversation with one of the people I know over there that works over there, and kind of explained to him, and they kind of agreed a little bit. He is trying to be anti or flip side Dana. And in that respect, I think he's only hurting them because his perception with how the company loves hyperbole. Oh, this guy's a 340-time champion. We're having 7 million intergalactic viewers from all parts of the galaxy. You know, all these weird things. And I'm a big supporter of one championship. I want them to see. That hurts them. And then also another thing that's weird by him, and I think it hurts him in terms of their notice in the media, like him going on Facebook and he's the one who announces the fights. Like, they just seem like this other weirder side MMA promotion that really doesn't fit in the mold of Bellator and UFC, which the fan perception is, okay, I see the fight news here, I see this here. You know, he really needs to take a page out of the Scott Coker book where less is more. We don't see Scott Coker hardly ever. Like, Chatri needs to be the mystery guy. And what's also funnier, too, about in this day and age where everyone, honestly, the new generation, even our generation a little bit, is moving away from Facebook. Facebook is seeming like it's starting to MySpace itself slowly. And because of the Russian hacking and their lack of really oversight and QAnon growing on there and all these things. So Facebook has become that weird space of weirdness. He already has a perception issue. He releases news on the social site that is the weird one. Like, I really feel he's, as much as I like him, I've interviewed, he's a nice guy, but he's hurting one's growth forward and acceptance, at least with Western fans. What do you think, Anthony?
I absolutely agree with that. He's such a hindrance to the growth of that organization, and at least in terms of their perception for North American audiences. I mean, it is totally unnecessary to make these bold proclamations about the level of of interstellar viewership. It's just, it doesn't exist, and you have to think everyone else is stupid in order to think that we believe it at all. And it's almost like at this point I kind of think he's just trolling, because he's seen the things that people have tweeted. Like pretty much every prominent person in mixed martial arts media has quote tweeted one of these 17 billion viewer bold proclamations and said and with an LOL. Everyone has done it.
Yeah.
And it's like this long running joke in MMA. I think if he took the Scott Coker approach, where like we know Bellator there are times where they're not doing too well. We know that the viewership isn't through the roof.
Yeah.
We know that their attendance isn't always through the roof, and they didn't always make the most money at the gate. But we just enjoyed the fights. And one championship has always had the benefit of having great fights and great fighters. Like I don't need to even tell you how much I love to see kickboxing with little gloves.
Yes.
Okay, I love it. It's one of the best things ever. We don't need that to have this extra window dressing.
Yes.
Just let the fights and the fighters speak for themselves.
Yep.
That's all you need. So instead of us focusing on the wonderful action that they have and the incredible athletes that they have, we're focused on the lunacy and the absolute pure foolish talk of their figurehead. And it's really doing a huge disservice to an organization that it's okay to not be the biggest thing in the world. It's okay to not be the biggest thing in the galaxy, and it's okay to not be the biggest thing in the universe. Just put on some good fights and we'll enjoy them.
Yep. And the thing is, they have a product that if you want to say, we're going to offer you an alternative to the UFC. Maybe you want it, maybe you don't, but we will offer an alternative. And they do. Like you said, the small gloves in kickboxing, the Muay Thai, they may, one day your favorite fighter may fight in a cage, or one day he may fight in the ring, or she may fight in the ring. Like, they have a great alternative. Also, their visual product, I dig it. I dig some of the elements they have of how the fighters walk to the ring, the champion's wall kind of thing, leaving the tour bus. Yeah, it's all staged, but it's different. And it makes sense. And also, I dig that they've introduced me to martial arts styles I didn't even know about. And I thought I knew a lot about them with the internet and UFC stuff. Like Wushu, no idea about Wushu. And they have, they introduced me to talent. There's a big world of fighters outside the UFC. You can argue, yeah, the UFC has the best, but there's still great fighters, and there's still great fights elsewhere. You nailed it. And that's why I talked to the person and you went about too, about just put up front what you have and the talent you have. And that's more than enough for Western fans. Like, give us mystery. Western fans are fascinated by Asian culture, and that's the home of martial arts. They should sell those things and just let it sell. Let it showcase itself. Like, trying to sell it with hyperbole and going with the fake it till you make it. It ain't happening. It just ain't connecting with Western fans. Maybe it does with Asian fans and market it that way to them, but to us, it's just not coming across. I mean, in the chat, we have a lot of great comments here. One person says that Jared Cannonier, he had a designated member, says he has a lot of bases covered. I give him that. He does. He also, designated member also says flat earthers are funnier. That's very true.
Okay.
Like, also, I guess Yojimbo going to the point of, like, finding out someone you like, bad, something negative about them that you were hoping not to hear. He says, that's like when I found out Masvidal was a Trumper. I think we've all felt that way.
Found out Rashad Evans is too, and that hurt my soul. That hurt my soul. But...
Rashad,
right.
Man.
All right.
Damn. All right.
Oh, well.
Going into Jay. Jay has some great points too. He talks about the 9 trillion potential viewers. 9 trillion. Jay, I think it's probably 12 trillion. It's messed up. Shouldn't undersell.
Underselling.
Yeah, don't undersell, Jay. One Championship released a documentary about Chatri. See, like, even Dana doesn't even have he owns UFC Fight Pass. He runs that. He doesn't have a documentary about himself. Like,
well, no. Actually,
he?
Dana does have a lot. Not necessarily a documentary about him, but he always finds a way to insert himself as a star. I once had a discussion with King Mo about how Dana White is the biggest star in the UFC.
And you know what? I get that because the fans have allowed it. The fans have allowed him to become the star. What his shtick works. But so even he still doesn't have a full-on documentary about his life. Chatri's not fighting. Why do we need a documentary? Like, but anyway, on the documentary, Jay mentions it had 1,000 viewers in a day when they left the counter up. People made fun of it, and in 3 days, it was suddenly up to 500,000 views with just 25 comments. So yeah, that's one championship at it. That's weirdest. But going on to the next question. Just Once asks, is Miranda Maverick Is she the next big thing in women's mixed martial arts? What do you think, Anthony?
I honestly don't know. Like I I couldn't tell you, man. Let's just see more. Let's just see more, man. I'm just withholding excitement about just about everybody at that level
Yeah.
where it's just, oh, they're going to be the next big thing. I need more of a sample size. We've been duped way too many times. I refuse to let it happen again.
Yeah, it's too early. Like I didn't know a ton about her. I don't watch enough Invicta. It's hard to watch everything and see everything and get a feel for everybody. But I did read about her. I did a little research today and read about she is making her UFC debut. But yeah, you nailed it. Like once it's a level jump. Like Invicta, LFA, folks from there. I'm not gonna put Bellator in there. I feel like we've already seen how Strikeforce talent, top talent, have dominated in the UFC. Bellator has top talent. One championship has, pretty close to top talent. But LFA, Invicta, I feel like they're the NCAA. Like they are that perfect league that develops the next UFC talent and some of the next stars. And everyone knows when you make that jump from the NCAA to the UFC, it's just hard. It's not easy. You can't know. Yeah, we can all speculate. Oh yeah, this guy, don't doubt. He's a no doubt talent. We gotta see it. We've seen draft pick busts all the time. So I need to see her do it. Does she have all the potential and is a top star? Without a doubt, but you got to do it.
And then also too, let's factor in what Invicta is now. Like I think when you're looking at Invicta 4 or 5 years ago, you're consistently seeing the best women in the world fighting.
Yes. Yep.
And while some of the other best women in the world that were fighting were in the UFC, a whole lot of them were Invicta. Now the UFC has done such a good job of continually poaching that roster that they're constantly having, and I'll give Shannon Knapp all the credit in the world for continually reinventing that organization and finding women to put in and highlight and televise. So what Invicta has become due to the UFC just poaching their roster on a consistent basis, it's certainly become a regional promotion now. And just like anyone else coming up from the regional circuit, I need to see a sample size first. I need to see what you look like against higher level opposition, and then we can make that judgment.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think bringing up Invicta is a perfect transition to this next topic I wanted to bring, which is which division has a more serious problem or issue when it comes to contenders? Is it women's flyweight? Is it women's bantamweight? Or is it women's featherweight? I mean, I'll just go through the rankings real quick. And the most fascinating thing about the rankings, and we all know this by now, UFC doesn't even have a women's featherweight ranking, so that says a lot already. Bantamweight to me and flyweight have the same kind of issues. Like there's options, there's just not great options. Jermaine the Durandamy is still number one. We've already seen that fight with her and Amanda Nunes. We've already seen Holly Holm and Amanda, who's next. Aspen Ladd, Raquel Pennington, Irene Aldana. Just not blowing the hair back, but the same issue, I think, even more so, and that's my pick. I say it's flyweight. In a way for me, featherweight is kind of just like, I think fans have already gotten accustomed to featherweight is just the championship fight, and then they're just looking for another person to fight for the championship, and then they'll have a contender fight. Like the division is in a constant nonsense, weird flux. I don't think people take it seriously anyway. But flyweight has one of the best fighters on the planet, and Shevchenko's amazing. And while I feel Jessica Andrade could be a really interesting threat for her, after that, it is just unshoresville, and I don't look at anybody in the entire top 15, no disrespect to any of those women, they're very talented fighters there, as any kind of threat. Like, we are pretty much going to be looking for Shevchenko to slip on the banana peel and do an Anderson and get herself knocked out, because otherwise, I don't see that division. That division, I think, is such a good champion, because in the end, we all feel like Amanda's probably going to leave soon. There's just a good sense she's probably going to retire soon. So then those will work themselves out. Shevchenko ain't going nowhere. Maybe she even goes back to bantamweight, but I think flyweight has the biggest issue when it comes to contenders past just one person.
Yeah, I think you said that pretty well, although I do disagree on the final answer. Now, as far as the featherweight division is concerned, that's where I agree with you at. The featherweight division isn't a division. Yeah. It's a few one-off fights here and there. We get a belt we can put on the poster from time to time, and that's it. So we get a bantamweight to eat a few cheeseburgers, step on the scale, fight Amanda Nunes, and then that's pretty much it outside of Megan Anderson and Felicia Spencer. That's the only other actual featherweights on the roster. I think it may be one or two more, but still not a real division. Bantamweight, I think, has the biggest problem because we've seen Amanda fight just about all of them.
Yeah.
We've seen some iteration of a variety of title fights that you can have in that division. Like Holly Holm just established herself once again in title contention. Do we really want to see that again? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Jermaine Durandamy, as you mentioned, I still the number one contender on the rankings. Do we really need to see that again either? So you're really at a loss for something that you can enjoy and watch. Now, I think flyweight has a serious problem as far as people we think can get past Shevchenko. The only thing is we haven't seen Shevchenko get past them yet. So at least you can sell a dominant champion. It can be reminiscent of Anderson Silva in his heyday, where it's just like, all right, who's this next person that's going to get highlight reeled? We can do that, and at least that's something. That's better than what the other two divisions have to offer. So I'll take bantamweight as the one that's in the most trouble.
Even though you're probably right, you're still wrong. And thanks for coming. But going back to
There's no way to treat a guest. No way to treat a guest. Petty officer credential.
I told you in the Burgos Dome. That's how it goes down in here. But going to the chat, we had some interesting comments. Jay, if you can look up this name, because I've heard her name, but I don't know her stats. If you give me some stats on her to back this up. Brianna Van Buren, because designated member says Brianna Van Buren, female DC, better than Maverick. I don't know too much about Van Buren. So.
I like Van Buren, but still, it's just I don't think we've seen enough of her on the highest levels. Like, so that might be interesting down the line, but I mean, right now, I don't know. We need more samples here.
Fair enough. Now, going into this last question, this is probably our last non-UFC, UFC 254 related stuff. We'll jump onto UFC 254 stuff heavily after this, but this is a big question. It's a fight I'm excited for. I even did a pros pick video that's out on the YouTube channel now for the Sherdog. It'll be on the main site this week, but Mousasi and Lima. Is Douglas Lima, or Douglas, I'm finding out now, I guess it's supposed to be Douglas Lima or Gegard Mousasi, is that the biggest non-UFC fight of 2020?
I guess so. I'm trying to think of other big fights for 2020, and I can't really. I mean, there was that Bellator card in January where we had Cyborg and Julia Budd. I think maybe if you put together MVP versus Raymond Daniels or something like that, that could be a big one. Although it would be more fun instead of big. I guess that would be probably the better way to describe that. Yeah, I mean that's a legit super fight. Like that's a super fight that sounds pretty damn good. And despite my general distaste with the super fight epidemic in mixed martial arts, I'll take the dry cough on that one. That one might be pretty dope. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'm pumped for it, and it's one of the first ones of these recent pros picks that I've done that it's actually close. Habib has a huge advantage in the pros pick I did for him and Gaethje, but this one, which is fascinating to me, because Rory went up and fought Gegard, and a lot of people kind of, maybe didn't expect that kind of a dominance, but probably thought Rory was probably outmatched. The fact that a lot of people really do feel, even fighters in the industry feel Lima has a good chance. Out of the picks, it was 9 Mousasi, 7 for Lima in the pros pick video. So there's a lot of people that really feel Lima can do it, and I think that's a fascinating thing. There's an element to this where it doesn't feel like, oh, a guy is just moving up to try to get this big payday, try to get a championship. Like, it's a guy that's moving up, a great champion, one of the champions in the sport that we feel could jump into the UFC and give every welterweight in the UFC a serious run for his money. Who wouldn't want to see Lima versus Usman? And this is a guy moving up to fight another really, really good fighter, multi-time champion, really diverse, really popular. They're both well-liked, well-respected, and people feel he can legit win. And that's what's fun about it. Like, Lima is really building this reputation. Like, I haven't seen this kind of love and respect. Even on UFC broadcast, Joe Rogan has even mentioned Lima's name as one of the rare fighters. They don't say Bellator ever. They don't even say Bellator's name, but Joe Rogan said Douglas Lima multiple times on air. Like, I can't remember a time a fighter this well was well respected and not in the UFC since, like, maybe Eddie Alvarez, Fedor, yeah, I can't it's that level. I think that's what's so exciting about it. Going to the Slack, Jay mentions going back to Brianna Van Buren. She just lost the decision in June to Tisha Torres, so that hurts a little bit. But she's 9-3, won the Invicta Phoenix Series tourney, and beat Livana Souza in a UFC debut. I think also Maverick won the recent Phoenix Series too, so they both have that in common, which is so I guess we'll see where both of them go from there. But let me see if there's anything in the chat to talk about. Now checking it a bit. Let's go to the next. Now this is kind of where we're going to go hard. It's UFC 254 conversation and stuff like that. We got another question from Year One. He asks, "Are you more confident in Justin beating Habib than his prior opponents?" What do you think, Anthony?
No, I'm not any more confident. I think the same
just
thing
shit
happens,
all over it. Like, nah.
No, but what I am confident in is that we'll know what's going to happen very, very early on. I think it's going to be within the first minute. We'll know for sure who's going to win this fight, because I think I said this on because you were the guest on Unleashed this week, which I did a piss poor job of like tweeting out and advertising when not. So the views are in the crapper. That's another story. But yeah, man, I think either one, Khabib is going to just take down Gaethje, and then the cycle of just beating him and laying on top of him is going to start, and we know what that's going to happen from that point on. Or he's going to try to do it. He's going to get stuffed on the takedown and then take a shot to the face, or leg kick or something, and then it's like, oh wow, this could get interesting. So it's going to be one of those two things, and that's pretty much going to determine the fight. But I don't feel any more confident about Gaethje than I do about anyone else. I still say Tony Ferguson, from a style perspective, is the toughest matchup for Khabib, mainly because what he can do from bottom. I don't think Khabib has faced like a bona fide, like off his back submission threat. And so I think Ferguson could provide that. And that's kind of it. So yeah, man, I think Khabib is going to do it again.
I do agree with you on Tony. I still think that's a fascinating fight and stuff like that. But I really do feel like, even though I'm picking Habib, I picked him on Unleashed when I was on it. I'm going to pick him later when we talk about it, because the guy's never lost. You have to go with them for someone so dominant and what they're so good at. But this, Justin really does feel like the guy that, if there was a guy up until this point, he has the right attributes and the right skill set to make it interesting. Because there's this assumption, you're probably gonna need some sick wrestler, some really great DC like wrestler to handle Habib's wrestling, stuff like that. That's not really the case. It's not like Habib is a guy that takes people down and they stay there the rest around. Are there instances that happens? Of course. And he dominates, he pummels people. But there's the Ally Quintas. Conor McGregor even got up on him. People can get up on him. And you don't necessarily need to be an Olympian or an NCAA wrestling champion to be great at takedown defense in MMA. George St. Pierre is arguably the greatest wrestler in MMA history, and he had no background in it. There's just those certain guys you get in there that maybe don't have credentials, but they know the right things, the right decisions to make in the fight technically, that their wrestling capabilities far surpass any of the credentials they had in there. And that's the fascinating thing, and I think you nailed it too. We're going to find it early. So because Justin has the mental fortitude. He's not going to give up. He has already great cardio, so even if he's getting wrestled for a while, he's still one of those guys that he can drop a bomb in the 4th or 5th round. Habib does get kind of a little lazy as the fight goes on and stuff like that. He's not unhittable. So there's a lot of interesting elements that he has that I really do feel like I'm a little bit more excited for this fight, especially over the performance he had on Tony. That makes me feel like, yeah, if there's a guy, this is the guy. So I mean, that's part of it for me. Next question comes from Pelly. They ask, is Gaethje underestimating Habib's ability to take damage? What do you think?
Maybe, but at the same time, like, the level of damage that Gaethje has dished out to people is just ungodly.
Yeah.
When you have that level of power and you have that
yes.
track record of just severing heads left and right, I think you have the right to doubt the next man's ability to take that power. And quite frankly, we haven't seen Khabib get hit that much.
Exactly.
We can think of
Who knows?
Yeah, we can think of that brief period against Michael Johnson, like that 30 seconds that Johnson threw a few combos, and Johnson can crack. He's got a lot of hand speed, so that was impressive. Conor winning that 3rd round against him, but it wasn't really true true to form Conor, and quite frankly, it wasn't true to form Khabib. He took that round off, in my opinion. Yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, Dustin Poirier cracked him one time, but he's still undefeated. So how effective was that striking at the end? I think Edson Barboza landed a couple really good ones on him too, but we saw what happened to him. So it may not matter really if Gaethje lands on him, because Khabib obviously can take a shot, and he's okay with eating one or two if he can enact his game plan, which is pretty damn devastating.
And you said it, like, he hasn't had that moment where he's really got pushed yet. He really hasn't gotten that shot that was like, oh, he wobbled a little bit, whoa, he backed up, he looks a little worried. We haven't seen this, so it's hard to know. It's still to be determined. But there is something to be said, and this is what makes fight sports, MMA, so good. You can have this guy that has been the most dominant fighter since he stepped in the room, probably the most dominant guy maybe on the block back in the day, and you get that guy, one guy in there with him that hits him hard enough to make him go, holy shit, and step back, and all of a sudden the facade of this unstoppable machine can be completely blown away. And Gaethje's the kind of guy, especially with his leg kicks, if he uses those leg kicks to and starts, we've seen how effective calf kicks can be. If he starts calf kicking the shit out of Habib with those kicks, laying the power, man, we could easily see the facade. We saw Mike Tyson's facade go away. We can easily see Habib's facade go away, and that's what's so fascinating about this fight. Going to the chat, Frank McEdgar mentions Jason bringing that energy tonight, Ant with that knowledge. Hold on. Are you saying, Frank, I'm not bringing knowledge?
I think that's exactly what he's saying.
I'm bringing all the knowledge and all the energy, and Anthony's still the sexiest man in this thing. Second sexiest.
Is Frank McEdgar still like one of the smartest people? In fact, is Frank McEdgar still going to be the guy to replace you on your own show?
I have to look for the button to how you can expel people from these chats. Frank, you are about to be expelled, sir. There's the three dots.
You keep him in this chat here. Frank McEdgar and I will be hosting next week edition of Back Talk. All right.
All right. Next question, and I think this is a fascinating question. We got about 10 minutes left. Jake Nichols comes in the chat randomly, just jumps into the chat and staying sexy. Yeah. Sexy at being terrible. Sexy at being terrible.
I mean, the people know what it is, okay? People know what it is. Like they're tired of what Burgos has to offer. They want that original flavor back.
When he's on Unleashed, he's Anthony and he's sexy. When he's in the Burgos Dome, he's Beeman. He's not sexy. SDP dude 9, he asked, and I think it's a good question, does the order of bouts on a card matter to you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely it does, because when you're trying to craft an event, you want a certain ebb and flow to the tension in the room. You want things to build to a crescendo. Like the main event should feel like a main event. Like we can think of a few times where the wrong fight was at the main event. Maybe it was because the style matchup or whatever the case may be. No fault of the promoters, but the main event means a lot, and the co-main event should mean a lot leading into the main event, and there should be relevant fights on that main card that get you excited for what's happening in the title pictures, or at the very least fun things to watch. And the prelims should lure you to reach for your credit card to buy the main card, and the early prelims should keep you interested in what happens in these guys' lives next and where they move forward in their career. So yes, card placement is very important, and I think it's a good hint as to what the intentions are for certain fighters in the promotion.
And I think, I mean, I agree with everything you say. It's very important, stuff like that. But also, it's this place that develops a lot of conversation for, especially for us journalists and just the really smart fans and diehard fans, to get upset, because often these setup, the layout of these cards often will give you the thinking of the UFC. You can kind of they're foreshadowing who they want to be their new stars, who they think they could be their new stars. Sean O'Malley is the greatest experiment in terms of that. Greg Hardy's another one too. How Greg Hardy comes in and is thrusted into major feature spots, co-main events. Sean O'Malley in major, like you see who they are behind and who they are not. And we get to argue and get on our soapbox and yell out, "Holy shit, this fight's amazing. Why is it opening up the prelims?" Like it's an awesome opportunity for debate and stuff like that. So it really matters on so many levels.
Yeah, and one of the things we used to always talk about when the flyweight division, the men's flyweight division, the UFC clearly was not committed to it because they wouldn't put any of them on the main card of a pay-per-view and stuff. So we knew, like, okay, they really don't care, but so much if they're only featured on prelims.
Yeah, I'll go into the chat. I think Frank McEdgar, he has lost his role as top chat addition and designated member, has fully designated member. You are now the number one top chatter, because he mentions it's very poetic how Burgos wears a shirt reading "Injustice," wink. Unlike other dictators, the Burgos Dome is open about its tyranny. That's right! That's right! We are open for business when it comes to tyranny.
Burgos Dome is trash. It's a haven of the unsexy.
How do I close this Skype? Let me close this Skype call right now. God damn it!
Don't you upset the people. They know what they want to see.
Designated member, you have been promoted. You are now the sexiest member in the live chat. Well done by you, designated. Now moving on to the key bouts of UFC 254. Oh yeah. Also, let me get back to Jay in the Slack. He mentions how long until Habib attempts a takedown? 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, or longer? What do you think?
30 seconds.
30, really?
30, yeah. Also, it depends on what level of Gaethje patience we're going to see, because part of his patience is kind of guiding someone and to move toward the right so they can fall into his right hand, or him backing away, trying to lure them in so he can sidestep or something. If he backs up against Khabib is going to smell blood and just die for his legs. So or even the leg kicks. I mean, the leg kick is a very effective weapon, but do you want to leg kick a wrestler who only needs to just graze your skin in order to have enough handle to drag you to the floor? So I think Gaethje will answer that question by what his actions are, and Khabib will respond accordingly.
Yeah, and Jay, if you could look it up, I don't know, it's not quick. I would love to know how long it took him to shoot his first takedown on Conor. I think it was somewhere in that 30 to 40 seconds range. It was in like the first 15 seconds.
Was
it that quickly? Wow. Okay.
So it was really quickly, if I'm remembering this correctly.
I think that will be a great indicator, because that's the best striker he's fought until that point. Gaethje's another one. I feel like though he will respect Gaethje a little bit more, I just have a sense it's probably going to take a minute or something like that. And like you mentioned, Gaethje will come forward, not relent. That'll put him in a weird, uncomfortable position, sort of like what happened late in that Iaquinta fight too. But let's go to this first. We got 3 key bouts to talk about. We're going to talk about Alexander Volkov versus Walt Harris. I ask you, who wins, and what is the narrative, the headline about that fight on Sunday? What do you think?
Alexander Volkov should win this fight. Like, he should. He is the by far the better skilled fighter. But man, this man knows how to lose a fight that he should win. I can't get the image of Derek Lewis cracking his chin into next year out of my mind. And with Walt Harris has the power to do that same sort of thing, and I think he's technically good enough to hang in there. Now, I think on Unleashed I made a different pick, but I've thought about it a little more. I say Walt Harris wins.
So I swayed you. I swayed you from Unleashed to here.
Yeah, you did. You did sway me. Yeah. So I'm going Walt Harris on this one.
And I agree in that, like, he has weird losses. Like, even going back, we all know the Derek Lewis fight, which I was watching that fight and I was mad. And not that I'm an Alexander fan or I'm a hater of Derek Lewis or anything like that. I was just mad he lost a fight he won that long in just the most lazy, poorly managed, last minute. But anyway, he has losses in Bellator to Czech Congo, Tony Johnson. So he's a weird guy. He could beat Stefan Struve, Roy Nelson, Fabrizio Verdum, and then he loses to Tony Johnson, and then loses to Derek Lewis in the last seconds fight. So
you just don't know what you're going to get with him.
Yeah, and I picked it on Unleash. I'll stick with it. I'm going to go with Walt Harris. I felt second round knockout. Jay and Ben made a great point that Harris is a lot of first round knockouts, so that made me wonder a little bit. But I still think he'll get a second round knockout. He'll just show that unique athleticism for a guy of his size. And I just think Volkov Volkov seems like the guy that he has all the potential to be a title contender, and just something happens like Tony Johnson or Czech Congo or Derek Lewis, and like this is just gonna be.
He continually finds the banana peel to slip on.
Yes.
At the moments where he should shine the most.
And then also considering the difficult recent history for Walt Harris. I mean, the first fight back from following his stepdaughter's death, he loses. Like, you almost feel like life has to give him something positive. Like, let's get him positive. He couldn't get the first win back. Like, get this win. This seems like that's how sports works out. But he was
also that close to finishing Overeem at the start of that fight.
Yep,
so he still showed good things. He just fought a guy who is sneakily good on the ground. And was able to kind of preserve himself long enough to turn the tables. So I think Walt Harris has everything he needs to beat this, especially if Volkov does what Volkov can do at times.
Adding real quick, Jay mentioned, this is interesting. Habib shot in for a low single exactly 15 seconds into the counter fight. However, his first takedown against Poirier came at a minute 20 of round 1. So that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling it's going to be respecting, and he's going to wait a little bit on Justin Gaethje. Especially if Gaethje can land some of the calf kicks, he's definitely going to wait a little bit because the guy knows how to use his legs. You don't want to walk into anything crazy. Now, also, I want to mention in the chat, just designated member, just coming with the hot fire, coming with the pure sexiness in the chat, coming with the number one chatter stuff. He says, and hasn't even seen Carlito's Way. Why do we listen to him anymore? Why?
I still haven't seen it.
That's if there's a peak trash, that is peak trash, Anthony. Peak.
I was watching The Boys instead.
The Boys is new. Carlito's Way's been out like 20 years, Anthony. What is your problem?
Yeah, maybe I'll check. Is it on Netflix now or something? Maybe I'll check it out. I don't know. I got too many things to do.
Carlito's Way doesn't need your petty little niceties. So you don't watch it. Don't watch it. He doesn't need.
I'm sure Carlito's Way would love to have me watch it. Thank you.
All right, now going to the co-main event: Robert Whittaker versus Jared Cannonier, the man of Israelite jewels. Who wins and what is the narrative about that fight tomorrow or Sunday morning? Excuse me.
Man, those Hotep dudes, man, they're an annoying bunch. But that's another story right there. I don't even want to get into that. But anyway, I think Robert Whittaker should win this fight. He should win this fight. Like, he has all the skill to do it. He's so well-rounded. His wrestling is so underrated. He is a guy that should beat everybody not named Israel Adesanya at 185. That being said, I think Cannonier is going to win this, man. Cannonier is just scary power, this just irrational belief in himself, and not too shabby from a skill perspective right there. This is the guy who leg kicked Anderson Silva to the ire of Brazil, and smashed Jack Hermanson into the 2030s. Like, I think Jared Cannonier will take advantage of the things that Whittaker does wrong, where he did this in the Darren Till fight. He'll charge at you with his chin up, and he took a lot of shots in that Till fight. There was a lot of back and forth. You don't have that many opportunities to take a Jared Cannonier shot and stay awake. So I think Cannonier sleeps him pretty violently, probably by the second is my guess.
Yeah, it's a tough one because on Unleashed, I picked Whittaker. I'm still going to go with Whittaker, but you and the guys made some great points, especially about his power, like you just mentioned, too. And that's something that really factored. He's such a weird thing, and this is why you kind of guess you probably need to believe in magic jewels and QAnon and all the fantastical things in the world, because on a physical, like, natural level, a man at 36 who has yo-yoed up and down in weight and did these different things, like that, he should be a guy on the decline. Like, he should be probably, declining, aging out of this kind of division. But because he's only had 17 fights, he doesn't have that normal wear and tear of a 36-year-old. He's not your average 36-year-old. He's like a 30-year-old, really. And that's what makes him interesting. And on the flip side, Robert's only 29, like we talked about on that show on Unleashed, but he has the wear and tear of a 49-year-old man, especially going through the ring with Romero. But just like I said on that show, I still believe Whittaker when he's just another level above, and I believe the narrative going in on the next day will be, will Israel Adesanya accept That's going to be the question: how he beats Cannonier. If he beats him impressively, Israel, I could see calling for a Robert Whittaker rematch all four. But if it's not impressive, maybe Israel Adesanya looks somewhere. But I think the narrative will be Whittaker deserves a title fight next. Does he get it? Let's see. Jay's got any additions? Not yet. Anything in the chat? So last question to sum it all up. We're gonna go with the main event of UFC 254, and Habib Nurmagomedov, Justin Gaethje. We've talked a good bit about it, but who is your pick, and what is the narrative? Because that's a fascinating thing. What's the narrative for either winner on Sunday morning?
I think Habib gets it done, and Justin Gaethje does present a lot of problems that Khabib hasn't necessarily faced. At least in one guy, like we've seen someone who can kick like there's no tomorrow in Edson Barboza. That didn't bode very well for him. We've seen people who are at least good grapplers. We've seen like a Division I wrestler in Abel Trujillo, but he was on the wrong end of the all-time takedown record in a 3-round fight. So, but to have a guy who could present all those problems, and maybe I'm being too generous in my assumptions about and things I'm saying about Gaethje's wrestling, because until we see it, it doesn't exist in my opinion. Yes, we know he has the track record as a Division I All-American at the University of North Colorado. We know he has that under his belt, but we have yet to see that in the high levels of mixed martial arts. We've seen that in like his early fights where he was slam takedowning people and whatnot, but he abandoned that very quickly and even like actively shuns wrestling. Went on record saying that wrestling ruins the sport. So I don't, it doesn't even seem like the skill that he has used at some point in the past is even going to be relevant here tomorrow night. Like maybe or tomorrow morning, I should say. He takes something that he can stop a few takedowns maybe. But I think at some point Khabib is going to do what he does, and that is overwhelm, pressure, and brutalize until either one, Gaethje gives up his neck, or he clings on to survive a pretty brutal 5-round beating.
Yeah, I mean, and there's not too much to add to that because I agree with it, and it's not too much I can add based on what I've said tonight and said on Unleashed. But yeah, I'm going for Habib. You can't doubt him until he loses. When you're closing in on 30, it's hard to go against it, especially as good as he is. To me, the bigger story is what the narratives are. If Gaethje somehow wins, I'm sure the narrative is going to be a new star of the sport, a new superstar is born. This guy is arguably the most exciting fighter in the company, the most fan-friendly fighter in the company. Now he just beat, like you mentioned, maybe the most famous MMA fighter on the whole planet, giving him his first. So it'll be one of the lead stories in sports, at least it should be, going into Sunday, going into Monday. However, assuming it is Habib, like I think it will be, I think the narratives are going to be, is this secret fight that Dana has, alluded to, is it GSP? All of a sudden, we got GSP interviews all of a sudden in the last few weeks. All of a sudden, talking about the fight. Is he going to fight GSP at like 165 or something in some kind of super fight? He wants it. GSP has seemed to be open to it. Or are we talking about who's next? Is it Conor? Is Dustin Poirier and Conor in a title eliminator? Does Habib want either? He's made it pretty clear this week he ain't too interested in either. Who else could it be? I think that's the fascinating things. What is the story we're talking about Habib on Sunday and the rest of the week if he is victorious as we expect? Let me say one last check for Jay. Anything? Gaethje win, does Habib get and take an automatic rematch? That's a good question. What do you think? Does he get it? I think he gets it for sure. The question is, does he want to take it?
Yeah, it'll be a question. If Khabib wants the immediate rematch with a Gaethje win, he absolutely gets it, absolutely deserves it. I guess depending on the way that the Gaethje will win, I think let's put that asterisk on it. But yeah, I mean, but Khabib may just not be interested in it. This is a guy who's near retirement, and maybe George St. Pierre loses interest in a fight against Khabib if Khabib loses, and maybe you can talk him into a Conor rematch at that point, and that could be a good way to close out his career if he sticks to that 30 fight limit that he put him on himself. Yeah, man, I guess so.
Yeah, I think he probably does. The how he lost would probably decide it. And I can see in a weird way, like all of a sudden the Conor fight interesting him over Justin Gaethje, especially if the numbers aren't big. Maybe he just wants that big payday before he were to retire. But that is it for this episode of Back Talk. As much as I hate on you, as much as I let your middle name government out there, as many of these shows I've done with world famous fighters, this by far, this Trenches reunion has been my favorite episode of Back Talk. I love you, Anthony. And thank you for coming on. Let the world know. Do you want to promote? Is there any? Let them know your social. Let them know the Twitter, the Instagram. Let them know any projects you're working on, MMA point stuff coming up. Let them know.
Oh yeah, definitely let them know. First of all, love you too, Jason. Always a pleasure to work with you. It was fun to have the Trenches reunion, and thanks everybody on the chat as well. It was good to hear some familiar names and reunite the old gang. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at AntWalkerMMA. It's also my Instagram. Don't post a whole lot. Still don't post a whole lot, but follow it anyway, just in case I do. Aside from that, I got some work at MMA On Point. You can check out a video we did this last minute. It's 10 of Gaethje's must-watch fights pre-UFC. So I wrote that in like a day and a half or something, like, so a lot of tape study, a lot of research on that. So check that one out on MMA On Point. Got some more projects coming out from them. I've got work at Body Lock. We check out their YouTube channel. We've got fight picks and everything there. In fact, in about an hour, I'm going to record some more stuff that should be out by tomorrow morning. And then also, I'm the latest hire at Karate Combat, so I'll be doing some writing for them as well. Should be an interview with Adam Kovac, their COO. Should be going live at some point soon, so I'll keep you guys tuned in. Follow the Twitter for that.
As for me, as always, check out Sherdog YouTube channel. Check out the pros pick. It's up now on the Habib and Gaethje. Take a look at it before the next week. I'm gonna have interviews with 4 different champions, 3 with 1 championship, 1 from LFA. All of them are fighting on Friday night, packed, and 2 of the contenders in those title fights. Look for those interviews and videos next week. I am Jason Burgos. He is the second sexiest man on this show, Mr. Beedman. Until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.